At 76 years old, Hubert Gillet, a professor at the Museum of Natural History in Paris, is one of the last great Saharan naturalists. In 1957, he left to explore the Ennedi massif in northern Chad. For more than 10 years, he traveled through the mountains on the back of a camel, looking for plants and animals which could bear witness to the time when the Sahara was not a desert. Today, he rarely leaves his house, nestled in the woods. He lives there with Fofo, his faithful parrot, his microscopes, and his 40 years of memories, memories which he agreed to share with us.
When I came to the Ennedi massif, it was no doubt the last unexplored part of the Sahara. The nomads who had been there thought of it as an extraordinary place with lots of watering spots and lush tropical vegetation. A dream come true for a botanist. These forests in the heart of the desert could, if they really existed, tell the story of a lost world, the Sahara as it was thousands of years ago. I dreamed of discovering this lost paradise, this Garden of Eden in the inferno of the desert. Without the tremendous knowledge of the Bidayat nomads, I would never have succeeded. It was they who guided me through this universe, so abstract for a civilized European like myself.
This is the first time that Ingai has taken his grandson Abderrahim along with him to introduce him to the life of a camel breeder. Up to now, the boy only looked after the goats on his own, while a few kilometers away, his mother and his sisters gathered wild grains. He is now old enough to travel with the men and the camels. Ingai and his grandson have just spent 10 months in the Great Plains of the Morcha. It's June, the height of the dry season, although it hasn't rained here for almost a year. The ponds have evaporated and the pasture land is barren. The animals are thirsty, and it's time for Ingai and his camels to head up the Sahara to the Ennedi massif, a veritable water tower with large ponds called guelta, shaded by the rocks. They will provide enough water for the camels until the next rains in July. The Bidayat nomads of the Ennedi live to the rhythm of the camels. In order to find pasture land and water, they have to be constantly on the move. The camels are the only wealth the nomads possess. A man is measured by the number of animals he owns. That is why the Bidayat almost never kill one. Camels are above all used for trading. They make up the largest part of a bride's dowry. Abderrahim will need a great many camels to marry a pretty girl, a chief's daughter, or the daughter of a rich merchant. When water is scarce, cohabitation between different herds is not always easy. Occasionally, there are even fights. Fortunately, there is water for everyone in the Arche canyons. They contain the biggest guelta in the Ennedi massif. All the Bidayat know this, and the longer the dry season lasts, the greater the number of camels that come to drink in the Arche. "4,000 years ago, the men of the Ennedi left a great number of red and white paintings on the rocks. Abderrahim discovers these images bearing witness to the life of his distant ancestors. At that time, instead of camels, they had large herds of cows, animals which would find it hard to survive here today. They lived in large huts and filled their attics with millet, which today exists only further south. Then, little by little, the rains diminished, the rivers dried up, the trees died, and only desert remained. The cows died off, and the camel appeared. As early as 2,000 years ago, the men of the Ennedi were already grooming their camels. The men have rounded heads, perhaps because they wear turbans. The women seem to be dancing. Today, the caves containing the paintings are sometimes used for storage. The nomads leave their things inside: tents made of dried palm leaves, receptacles of all kinds made of straw, leather, or metal. They are placed here to shelter them from the rain, and so that they are protected by the spirit of the cave. Nobody even thinks of stealing them. It's lunchtime. On the menu, spaghetti, imported from Libya, like most products sold in the Ennedi market. The Libyan border is very near here, and northern Chad was occupied by Colonel Gaddafi's troops for several years. Then, Chadian soldiers managed to push the invaders back. The Bidiyat were on the front lines. Their ancestors seem to have been warriors as well, according to the paintings. They left for battle on horseback and undoubtedly returned with the animals they captured from the enemy.
July 1957. In the desert-like plain of southern Ennedi, the wells are dry and the grazing land is bare. My guides reassure me. They know lots of watering spots hidden in the rocks of this massif, which is the size of Switzerland. We'll find all the water we need at the edge of the massif in the Arche canyons. August 3rd. I reached the Arche canyons. There are large guela fed by springs and saved from evaporation by the shade of the sandstone cliffs, rising to 200 meters. This great quantity of water has perhaps enabled the survival of rare species of plants or animals. While my guide set up camp, I climbed the cliff. From the top, I can see all the canyons. Suddenly, I see them motionless on the sandbanks. Crocodiles. Crocodiles in the Sahara. That's impossible. They must have survived. separated from the rest of their species by thousands of kilometers and thousands of years. The Arche Canyons are undoubtedly their last refuge, as well as their prison.
The water in the Guelta has been soiled by camel excrement. To find drinkable water, Abderrahim has to reach the springs which are upstream. Like Hubert Gillet 50 years earlier, Abderrahim has to go through the dark water. Ingai has told him to be careful. One never knows with crocodiles. The danger is past. Abderrahim feels safe. It seems that the crocodiles were more frightened than he was. The child sees the spring his grandfather told him about. He's never seen water so pure, so limpid, in the middle of the desert. After months of drought on the plains, a bath is an exceptional event for a nomad. His grandfather's tea can wait. For the Bidéat, the spring is sacred. Not everyone has the right to drink from it. Women who don't belong to the Arche clan are forbidden unless they find a lost jewel. Abderrahim knows this belief. When he was small, his mother told him the legends of the springs. And so he looks at the bottom. There are no jewels, but there are thousands of little fish. If Abderrahim does find a jewel here, he'll take it to his grandfather and say, "Look, a present from my ancestor." The Bidéat were converted to Islam, but old beliefs still exist. Secretly, they continue to worship the spirit of their forefathers. Crocodiles are also greatly respected. The Bidéat consider them to be guardians of the spring. If they dare kill one, the water will disappear.
August 5th. I noticed the tracks of a small crocodile in the sand. These reptiles are very fearful, strangely enough. As soon as I approach them, they dive into the water. A little further on, I find the animal's excrement. I analyze it, hoping it might tell me what a crocodile eats in the Sahara. I find the remains of fish, frogs, and aquatic insects. In other words, they eat whatever is in the Guelta. But their meals are more like survival rations than real dinners. Sometimes they even resort to camel droppings floating in the water. As soon as the sun enters the canyons, the crocodiles leave the water. The canyons, however, are only lit for a few hours a day, and places are hard to come by. This sun bath is absolutely necessary. Like all reptiles, they can't adjust their body temperature. Once the sun goes down behind the cliffs, they return to the water, where it's difficult to see them. In the meantime, I watch them for as long as I please. Arche crocodiles belong to the same species as those of the Nile and tropical Africa. They're small, however, never longer than 2 meters, whereas an adult crocodile can be 5 to 6 meters long. The Arche gueltas are too small for the crocodiles to grow to normal size. My guides tell me that during the rainy season, the waters rise so violently that they can carry a crocodile away for several kilometers. If it doesn't die, it has to swim upstream to get back to its habitat. Smaller animals, like fish and frogs, find themselves prisoners of tiny potholes. If they're lucky, the water will remain until the next rainy season. The crocodiles are also prisoners of their Guelta, and as long as there's water, they can survive despite the fact that the desert is just a few meters away. They simply have to wait patiently for the next period of humidity, a few centuries or a few millennia.
The Leucopternis is a vulture, but instead of the bald head of most vultures, its head is much more graceful. Adults have white feathers, although the youngsters' feathers are black. They become whiter with age. The Bidayat claim that a very white bird is 100 years old, which is why when blessing children they say, "May God grant you the age of a vulture." Ingai decides to leave. He's promised to take Abderrahim to a wonderful canyon with lush vegetation. It's one of the secrets the old camel driver must pass on down to his grandson. Nomads can pick up and leave a place in a matter of minutes. All the equipment they need for the journey is stored in the mala mala, large leather sacks cut from the stomach of a camel. Another vital accessory for the nomads is the basur, the camel's saddle, carved from acacia wood. It's placed on top of blankets, which makes it more comfortable.
The crocodiles put me on the right trail. There must exist, somewhere in the Ennedi, remains of the forests which once covered the Sahara. I talk it over with my guides. One of them knows a mountain with a paradise-like oasis at the summit. I give the order to leave. August 12th. After several days of walking in suffocating heat, I wonder if I wasn't dreaming. In front of me is a monumental arch as high as a 30-story building. This stone cathedral, however, was not made by man, but by nature. Perhaps it's the gate into the Garden of Eden that I've been looking for.
At the foot of Mount Aloba, Ingai has spotted a small cluster of acacias. At midday, when it's hot, the shade is really a blessing. It's the ideal place to take a break and give the animals some rest. Ingai tells his grandson that high up on Mount Aloba, there is still a small oasis hidden in a deep crevasse. There's a spring, palm trees, and they say that life is good there. However, Nobody dares try to climb up. The mountain is sacred, and those who have ventured up have never come back down.
The vultures are there, gliding along the dizzying cliffs. Can they see the mysterious palm grove from up above? I have to find out if it's real or a legend, and to do so, I must try to climb up. After days of looking longingly at Mount Aloba, I decide to go into action. I try climbing up, but I barely reach the halfway mark when I find myself face to face with a vertical, insurmountable wall. I have to retreat, but I won't give up. I'll make it, no matter how long it takes. After days of searching for a trail in the middle of the 400-meter-high rock face, I'm about to give up on ever seeing this inaccessible oasis, when suddenly I see a long gutter leading to the summit. I set up camp at the foot of the cliff. The next day, nothing can stop me, and I finally set foot on the plateau atop Mount Aloba. Religiously, I tread on the soil which perhaps nobody has treaded on before. I look in vain for the palm grove. Without a doubt, Mount Aloba is the realm of rocks and steep rock faces. There's no place for springs, enchanting valleys, or palm trees. The summit is invisible, drowned in a blanket of fog. I feel far from the Sahara. I'm discouraged, but my guide reassures me. He says he knows real forests hidden in the heart of the Ennedi massif. We leave.
Ingai's caravan continues on the strange trails that erosion has dug in the sandstone walls. In the corridors of this gigantic natural labyrinth, a careless camel driver can wander for days, or even be lost forever. Ingai has warned Abderrahim. The herd has to be watched closely in the labyrinth. A camel can easily get lost, and even trying to find it, given the fact that it can be found, is a waste of precious time for the caravan. Suddenly, Abderrahim realizes he's missing a young camel. Ingai is furious. This is not the moment to lose a camel. If other travelers find the animal, they'll make it their own. Stealing camels is a common practice for the Bidiyat. Before getting married, a young man must accomplish the task of stealing a camel from a distant herd.
August 17th. I can see an immense patch of vegetation. It's the Basik Canyon. It seems to shelter a real forest. I can feel I'm reaching my goal. This lush paradise I'm looking for might be right here.
In Bidayat, Bashikale means the spring where he slept. A long time ago, when Ingai's ancestor came here, he rested in the canyon and then settled here. Ever since, the canyons have been considered sacred. As a child, Ingai came here to worship his ancestor. Offerings are made to him, animals sacrificed, and prayers said to him. People ask him to protect the camels from wild animals or to find a young stray. Ingai has become a good Muslim. He no longer worships the ancestor, but he still believes in his presence. And he also believes that at Bashikale, his herd will be under the ancestor's protection, and thus will have enough to eat and drink. Ingai wants to show the canyon of his forefathers to his grandson as well. At the entrance to the canyon, there's a jungle of doom palm trees. Abderrahim has never seen so many trees. The doom palm tree is usually found in the savannah, hundreds of kilometers south. Its presence here indicates that they are no longer in the Sahara, that there is water present. Ingai and Abderrahim take advantage of their stop here to gather palm leaves. Once dry, they can be used to cushion the camel saddles. The Bidayat know all about the doom palm trees of Bashikale. Like the peasants of the savannah, the Ennedi nomads have learned to use the big leaves and the solid wood of this valuable tree. The leaves are woven to make tents and the wood used to build houses. Contrary to desert palms, the doom palm tree does not bear dates, but large nuts. The Bidayat children love them.
Hey!
Ingai and Abderrahim go through the canyon by following a stream that meanders for more than a kilometer. A river in the middle of the desert, a vestige of the rivers which once flowed in the Ennedi.
Near the water, I find some trees I've never seen before in the Sahara. 20-meter-high trees with dark, lush leaves. These trees usually grow only in equatorial Africa, 3,000 kilometers from here. Their trunks stick to the rock face. Their roots twist and tighten around the rocks like tentacles.
At the foot of the canyons, the water prevents the caravan from going on. Here, water is eternal. It comes out of the rock from an inaccessible spring sacred to the Bidiyat. Long ago, Ingai recounts, their ancestor was dying of thirst, but God guided him to Bashikele, where the spring saved him. And today the ancestor still lives in the spring, watching to make sure his children are never short of water.
The vegetation of Bashikele is perhaps the greatest discovery of my life. Like the crocodiles, the big trees and the reeds are the remnants of another era, separated from their species for thousands of years. What a discovery! I didn't have the books I needed with me to identify these species, but I took some leaf and seed samples, and I recognized them. There was the revolvia, a tree I'd seen in Cameroon. And there were the same roots floating in the crocodile-infested rivers, and the same branches on which there were multicolored parrots. So that's what the Sahara looked like 10,000 years ago. I was bursting with joy. I had the feeling that I was in a time machine. Excitedly, I spent my days working on my herbal book so that I could report proof of what I had seen to France, and also to prove to myself that it wasn't all a dream.
The last time he came here, Ingai immersed some palm leaves in the pond. When they are on the verge of rotting, the palm fibers are ready to be used. The grandfather shows his grandson how to weave the softened leaves.
Okay. Yeah.
The palm leaf is used to make an excellent quality rope, used not only to fasten the load on the camel, but also to put the fetters on their feet. This prevents a young camel from going too far from the herd. The labyrinth incident must not be allowed to happen again.
Another unexpected discovery. The water and trees attract birds to the canyons. After spending the summer in Europe, many migrators take the shortest route across Africa over the Sahara. Those that don't die of exhaustion can make a stop at Bashikele. Every day, I observe an ox-pecking heron, which has adapted so well here that he seems to be at home. Baboons, too, stay near the canyons, since, like us, they have to drink regularly. They come down at night and then go back up where they spend the day. I come across a few stragglers every morning.
Ôi, đúng quá, sao nó quét rồi sao?
Hả?
Quét rồi, quá sớm rồi. Ai xí ai đây nè? Ai xí ai đúng quá thì mới ngờ rồi. Ai này xí ai đúng quá không à? Đúng quá không, gì mà quên cái gì?
Ingai shows Abderrahim tracks left by baboons that came down to drink. The child asks his grandfather if it's they who bark like dogs. Yes, says the old man, it's them. They live very high up on the unreachable plateaus. The Bidayat consider baboons to be part of their family, and it's forbidden to eat them. Ingai tells his grandson the legend of the monkeys. One day, some villagers committed a murder. Fearing revenge from a member of the victim's family, they fled up the mountain. To punish their crime and their cowardice, God disfigured them. And that is how monkeys were created. They remain in the mountains, cursed for eternity. Ingai warns Abderrahim. It's dangerous to venture on the territory of these cursed men. In their mountains, they are capable of attacking a careless visitor. Abderrahim, however, dreams of the mysterious spring his grandfather described to him. To find it, he has to climb to the top of the canyons, the monkey's stronghold, at an altitude of 200 meters.
August 23rd. We are on the Basik Plateau, trying to find the origin of the spring. A group of monkeys follow me, intrigued and fascinated by this strange biped they see. They come closer, look me over, and escort me, making very amusing gestures. They feel totally at home along the steep cliffs. They make use of the slightest uneven surface and are rock climbing champions. I reach the top of the canyons. The erosion of the sandstone is the most intense here. There are only needles, jagged peaks, gaps, rock falls, all mixed together and indescribably chaotic. Lower down, the canyon is so narrow that the spring is invisible. It's there, however, still in the shade and protected from evaporation.
The monkeys, guardians of the spring, are not used to seeing humans on their domain. Abderrahim, however, doesn't even notice them anymore. He just wants to touch the water of the sacred spring, the spring which enabled his ancestor to take possession of this land. But the walls are too steep. The mountain stubbornly prevents living beings from attaining these places. The child cannot go any further. A strange rock with a monkey's head seems to be a mythological monster blocking the passage. Abderrahim retraces his steps. Thanks to his grandfather, the boy now knows some of the secrets of the Ennedi massif. Filled with this ancestral knowledge, Abderrahim is now ready to become master of the caravan.
200 meters above me, I see the reeds and the trees similar to those in the Congo and the Zambezi. A true revelation. Eureka! I have found my Garden of Eden. I had devoted 10 years of my life to exploring the Ennedi. After these 10 rewarding years, I felt I have found my holy grail. The grail for which all men search during their brief passage on Earth. My quest had been accomplished. I had my notes, photographs, herbals, and memories. It is not impossible that one day the Arche crocodiles and the Basik will disappear. I hope that my work has not been in vain, and that whatever happens, libraries will preserve the memory of this paradise I was fortunate to have seen in my lifetime.